Never did I imagine that entrusting my precious child to an unworthy hand would unravel the very fabric of my existence in but 2 short days. Yet here I find myself, a week past the birth, ensconced in solitude within our dwelling, cradling a newborn, whilst the remnants of my husband's presence have vanished, and the spectre of separation looms ominously above me. Hark! I am Brianna, aged 29, and prithee, allow me to recount the tale of how I brought ruin upon my union swifter than the healing of my episiotomy stitches could unfold. After a courtship that spanned 2 years, Carter and I did unite in the sacred bond of matrimony. Verily, it was akin to a tempestuous storm. In our ascent through the realms of our professions, we found ourselves nestled in a charming abode within the bustling city, ever in harmony with one another on all matters of import. Or so it seemed to me. The singular matter that ever did vex him was the bond I shared with Liam, my former companion from the halls of learning. Verily, Liam and I did court for 3 years ere we came to the understanding that our bond was more fitting as companions. Though 5 years have passed since our parting, the threads of our existence remain intertwined, as if we never truly severed the bond that held us close. When Carter and I first embarked upon our romantic journey, he appeared quite at ease with the presence of Liam in our midst. Yet, upon the binding of our troth, he began to utter these subtle jests. Verily, when Liam would send me missives in the late hours, and I would find mirth in his words, Carter would inquire, "What jest doth he find worthy of sharing at the stroke of midnight?" I would cast mine eyes heavenward and declare him to be most absurd. Liam and I were but mere companions, whilst Carter must needs conquer his envy that doth plague him. Lo, I discovered the joyous news of my condition but a mere 9 moons after the vows were exchanged. A most unfortunate mishap. During our friend's weekend away, I did neglect to take 2 of my pills. Verily, I found myself in a state of great distress, for our carefully crafted 5-year plan did not foresee the arrival of an infant in the very first year. Yet, what of Carter? He was filled with boundless joy, commenced the perusal of numerous tomes on fatherhood and the acquisition of various applications for parenting. Ere I had even traversed the trials of the morning malady, when Liam did venture to Seattle for his occupation, it coincided with the time of Carter and my union, which, truth be told, rendered matters less complicated, for his absence in the flesh was a boon. Yet, lo, 3 moons into my condition, he was summoned back to our fair city. He forthwith took it upon himself to be my companion in this journey of expectancy, bestowing upon me ginger confections to quell my queasiness and sending missives to inquire after my well-being with great regularity. Carter did perceive it at once. Hath not Liam his own affairs to ponder upon? He would inquire each time my device did emit a sound, heralding yet another missive. He doth merely extend his hand in support, I would declare, not comprehending why Carter could not simply cherish the presence of another soul devoted to my well-being. As the days of my condition unfolded, Liam grew increasingly engaged in the journey ahead. He would arrive bearing sustenance whilst Carter toiled into the night. He would proffer his chariot to convey me to my engagements should Carter be unable to attend. He did accompany us to several of the classes concerning the arrival of new life, particularly when Carter was otherwise engaged in his labor. Upon reflection, I perceive how Carter's jaw would clench with each instance that Liam interposed himself into yet another momentous occasion of expectancy. By the 7th month, Carter resolutely took a stand. We engaged in a considerable dispute wherein he proclaimed it most unusual for my former paramour to be so entwined in our forthcoming progeny. I did declare unto him that he was being overbearing, and that Liam was but a steadfast companion who held concern for my well-being. He is more than a mere companion, Brianna. He is thy former suitor, whose heart doth still yearn for thee, and thou art either too blind to perceive it, or dost relish the attention so greatly that thou art loath to bring it to an end. As Carter hath proclaimed, mine ire did burn with great intensity. I did lay blame upon him for seeking to cast me into solitude when I craved companionship most fervently. 3 weeks prior to the arrival of my little one, I found myself beset by contractions whilst Carter was engaged in a work conference, a journey of 2 hours distant. Upon my summons, he did hasten forthwith, yet was ensnared in most lamentable congestion upon the thoroughfare. Upon measuring the intervals of my contractions for a full hour and perceiving their swift approach, a wave of panic seized me, prompting an immediate call to Liam. Without a moment's hesitation, in but a quarter of an hour, he did arrive at our humble abode and conveyed me forth to the hospital. When I had been duly checked in and found my place within the chamber of labor and delivery, the waves of my contractions did indeed strike with great fervor. Liam stood steadfast by my side, grasping my hand through each wave of torment, fetching me ice chips and championing my cause with the nurses when my voice was lost to the agony. Carter did at last make his entrance, 4 hours hence, appearing fraught and in disarray. The air within the chamber shifted most suddenly. Carter bestowed upon Liam a frosty nod, and Liam, who occupied the chair beside my bed, did not hasten to relinquish his place to Carter. "How dost thou fare, my dear?" Carter inquired, approaching the far side of the bed. With steadfast resolve, I proclaimed my endurance, yet swiftly turned to Liam as another wave of pain surged forth. "Couldst thou apply pressure upon my back as the caregiver hath instructed thee?" In that moment, I failed to perceive the shadow that crossed Carter's visage as Liam leapt forth to assist me through the throes of the contraction, showcasing a method they likely rehearsed whilst Carter was ensnared in the clutches of traffic. The ensuing span of 18 hours unfolded as a tempest of anguish, weariness, and the ceaseless passage of healers, flitting in and out like shadows upon the stage. Carter endeavored with great fervor to assume the mantle of support, yet it was plain to see that he bore the weight of an outsider's heart. Liam, perchance, did not perceive the subtle nudges to depart, or mayhap he chose to disregard them, remaining steadfast throughout the entirety of the toil. When our fair daughter did grace us with her presence at the hour of 5:37 a.m., I found myself utterly spent. The caregiver tended to her needs whilst the healer concluded his work with me. Carter's eyes brimmed with sorrow, and even Liam, in his quiet corner, bore the weight of emotion upon his countenance. "Wouldst thou care to embrace thy daughter?" The nurse approached, bearing our diminutive bundle swathed in a delicate blanket, drawing near to the bed. Less than text, this is the hour that wrought ruin upon all. Though my eyes were blind to it in that moment, with my senses still clouded from the recent event, I raised mine eyes and beheld both Carter and Liam in their steadfast presence. In a moment of spontaneity, I beckoned to Liam and proclaimed, "Allow him the honor of holding her first. From the very dawn of this tale, he hath been present." The nurse lingered in her decision, casting her gaze betwixt the gentlemen with a heart full of doubt. Carter's visage turned as pale as the moonlit night, his lips parted ever so gently, as if a thought lingered on the tip of his tongue, yet the words eluded him. Lost in the depths of silence, the chamber fell into a profound hush, save for the gentle murmurs of the infant. "Art thou certain?" the nurse inquired, her discomfort evident. "Verily, all is well," I proclaimed, yet my mind remained clouded, failing to grasp the weight of the revelation I had just unleashed. "Hark, Liam, approach and make the acquaintance of my fair daughter." The nurse, with a heavy heart, did place my newborn daughter into the embrace of Liam. He gazed upon her with an air of astonishment and softly uttered, "She is truly flawless, dear Bree." I smiled wearily, a curious sense of wholeness washing over me as I beheld him cradling her in his arms. It was not until mine eyes did wander to Carter that I discerned a most grievous matter afoot. He had retreated to the wall, his visage a canvas of anguish and disbelief. "What troubles thee?" I inquired of him, truly perplexed by his response. "What troubles thee?" Carter uttered once more, his voice trembling and hushed. "Less than text, thou hast entrusted our daughter into the hands of thine former suitor, to be held before mine very eyes, her sire." The manner in which he uttered those words did cause my stomach to plummet. Yet my first instinct was to don the armor of defense. "Oh, prithee, let us not magnify this matter unduly. He didst arrive ere all others and hath lent his aid throughout the ages. Thou shalt soon embrace her in thine arms. That is not the crux of the matter." "Fair Brianna," quoth Carter, his tone laced with a simmering ire held in check, "that was meant to be our cherished hour. Thine and mine and our beloved child's, not his." Liam, in a manner most uneasy, did shift his stance, the infant cradled tenderly in his arms. Perchance I ought to bestow her upon thee, good sir, he uttered to Carter, at last appearing to discern the atmosphere. Nay, nay, he doth overstate the matter, I did declare with haste. I did direct mine gaze upon Carter. What dost thou seek in this moment of turmoil? Lo, I have brought forth new life. Pray, wouldst thou cease to centre all discourse upon thine own self for but a brief span of 5 minutes? The anguish in Carter's gaze grew profound. Yet ere he could utter a reply, my device chimed with a herald of news. Whilst we were engaged in a spirited debate, Liam didst capture a likeness of himself with the infant and did send it forth to me. I didst check it with a swift motion, whilst Carter beheld my actions, his countenance growing ever more stern. Pray, dost thou jest? He did proclaim. Art thou perusing thy device at this very moment? 'Tis but a mere image, quoth I as I raised the device to present it unto him. Behold the charm they exude in each other's company. Carter gazed upon the image, then turned his eyes to me, as if in disbelief of the unfolding events. I shall seek the fresh breath of the outdoors, he declared at last, pivoting towards the threshold. Pray, Carter, do not be absurd, I did call after him. Come, take thy daughter into thine embrace. He lingered at the threshold, casting a glance over his shoulder at the trio of us, I confined to the hospital bed, while Liam tenderly held our newborn in his arms. Is she so? He inquired softly, then departed. I didst roll mine eyes at his theatrical departure. He shall find his temper tempered, I did declare unto Liam and the nurse, who appeared ever more ill at ease. He is but weary and beset by feelings. The morrow dawned with a procession of caregivers, purveyors of milk's wisdom, and the learned physician's inquiries. Carter lingered in the chamber, yet remained aloof, devoting the greater part of his hours to either cradling the infant in silence or gazing intently at his device. When Liam did send forth a missive inquiring if he might pay a visit, and I did acquiesce, lo, Carter's entire form did stiffen with unease. I had hoped for a gathering of kin this day, spoke Carter softly as Liam entered, bearing blooms in hand. We are, I did respond. Liam doth make a brief visit to inquire after our well-being. Such a notion doth not embody the true essence of kinship. Brianna. Yet Liam lingered for countless hours. As a nurse entered to assess my well-being, she cast a warm smile upon Liam and inquired, Good sir, would you care to engage in the tender embrace of skin to skin with the infant whilst I attend to the needs of the mother? Before I could interject with my counsel, Liam did chuckle and proclaimed, Oh, I am not the sire, merely the dearest companion. The caregiver appeared perplexed, then filled with a sense of shame. Upon learning of the unfortunate confusion, Carter remained silent, his lips sealed as if by some unseen force. He did but take the infant from the cradle and seated himself in the chair most distant from Liam. In the twilight hours that followed Liam's departure, Carter sought to engage me in conversation. Fair Brianna, we must convene to deliberate upon certain boundaries that must be established. What limits dost thou perceive? With a gentle hand, I perused the images that Liam had graciously shared from that day, selecting a few to adorn my Facebook with captions such as, The infant's inaugural day amidst her cherished companions. Lo, Liam doth linger here with unceasing presence. The caregiver believed him to be the progenitor. Perceive you not the chaos that doth unfold before our eyes? With a weary glance, I lifted mine eyes from the device, vexation stirring within me. Nay, I do not. He doth offer his support. Whilst thou art consumed by an odd jealousy, he did convey me to the place of healing. Dear Carter, that ought to have been mine. Carter declared, his voice strained. Lo, I am her sire. I am thy wedded lord. And I perceive as though I am being cast aside from mine own kin ere it hath truly begun. Thou art being most absurd. I did declare, no soul doth compel thee to depart from aught. Thou art magnifying a trifling matter, driven by thine own uncertainties. Carter spake not a word more that eve. Upon the morrow's light, he bore a demeanor more subdued than his wont. Yet he lent his aid in the cleansing ritual and in preparing me for my release. The physician hath declared that we may return to our abode by the hour of noon. Thus we commenced the gathering of our belongings. It may be that Liam shall grace us with his presence this day. He did declare that he had procured some provisions for our needs. I did remark in a manner most nonchalant. Carter ceased his folding endeavors. Fair Brianna, I beseech thee, let not his presence grace our humble abode this day. What hinders us from such a course? He doth merely deliver provisions. Forsooth, I yearn for but a single day, a fleeting moment, with thee and our cherished daughter, free from the shadow of thine erstwhile suitor's presence. I didst let forth a heavy sigh, laden with emotion. Art thou yet engaged in this pursuit? I did presume thou wouldst have moved past it by this time. What, pray tell, hast thou overcome? Less than text dost thou persist in showing disdain for our sacred union? That thou dost hold his sentiments in higher regard than thine own? Art thou suggesting that thou dost desire his presence in our daughter's existence more than that of her own sire? Thou art now but a jest. I did declare, Liam is but a companion, lending his aid with kindness. Carter gazed upon me for an extended span, as though he beheld my essence with newfound clarity for the very first time. I must seek the fresh breath of the open sky, he declared at last, seizing his cloak with purpose. I shall return ere the hour of release arrives. At the stroke of 11:30, I found myself fully prepared and laden with my belongings. Yet Carter had not made his return. I did send him a missive. Whither dost thou wander? We stand prepared to embark anon. Silence reigns supreme. By the hour of noon, vexation began to take root within me. The caregiver entered with the documents of release, and I found myself compelled to inform her that my spouse had yet to return. At the stroke of 12:30, a true concern did beset me, prompting me to summon Carter's device with a call to the realm of silence. Thy call doth venture. By the hour of 1 in the afternoon, my temper did flare, and I summoned Liam to come forth and retrieve us. Upon our arrival at the dwelling, I was struck with astonishment to discover that Carter's valise had vanished, accompanied by several of his garments and his device for computing. Upon the kitchen counter lay an envelope, bearing my name with a flourish. I bestowed the infant unto Liam and, with trembling hands, did rend it asunder. Fair Brianna, the missive commenced. Verily, I find myself unable to endure this any longer. The events of the last 2 days have revealed a truth most disheartening. I find myself relegated to a position of little significance in the tapestry of your life and that of our beloved child. Many a time have I sought to converse with thee regarding the most unsuitable bond thou dost share with Liam. Yet thou turnest a blind eye to the pain thy deeds inflict upon my heart. To behold my offspring entrusted to another's care before mine own eyes was the breaking point of my endurance. Pray, grant me a moment's respite to ponder the viability of this union. For the present, I shall take refuge at my brother's abode. I shall make inquiries regarding the arrangements to behold the infant. Pray, grant me a respite from thy communications for a span of days. Carter, thou art called. What in the name of all that is good? I exhaled, casting the missive upon the counter with a heavy heart. Did he take his leave? Did he truly depart? What dost thou find amiss? Liam inquired, softly cradling my daughter in his arms. Carter hath departed. He gathered his belongings and departed. Mine eyes did brim with tears, a sorrowful tide rising within, not weeping in sorrow, but rather in ire. Who forsakes their beloved spouse and tender infant? What manner of man doth such a thing? Pray, allow me to behold. Liam did declare, inclining himself to peruse the missive. Alas, what fervor doth this evoke? It is naught but sheer folly. I did declare in my vexation. Lo, I have brought forth a child, his own progeny, and yet he doth throw a fit forsooth. For I permitted thee to cradle her ere him? Who doth concern themselves with the one who grasped her first? Liam didst shift with discomfort most palpable. Verily, I perceive how such matters may have held great significance for him. Not thee as well, I did exclaim. He doth act most absurdly. Upon the morrow, I didst take to Facebook to share mine thoughts. Nothing reveals a man's genuine nature quite like his demeanor when fortune does not favor him. Verily, it seems that certain fathers deem it permissible to forsake their newborn daughter, merely for the lack of having cradled her in their arms first. Lo, the path of solitary motherhood doth beckon me forth. 3 days hence from my return from the hospital. At last did I receive a missive from Carter. Tomorrow, at the hour of 2 in the afternoon, I shall make my presence known. To behold the infant. Pray, let it be that Liam is absent from this gathering. Upon the morrow's arrival, Carter appeared most wretched, as though slumber had eluded him for countless nights. His eyes bore the hue of crimson, and upon his visage, the first whispers of a beard began to emerge. "May I embrace her?" he inquired. Neglecting to offer me a salutation first, I bestowed upon him our daughter, and forthwith his visage did soften with tender affection. He perched upon the brink of the settee, distance from my presence as if by fate's decree, and beheld her with an unwavering gaze. "Pray tell, hast thou concluded thy petty display of vexation?" I inquired. He raised his gaze, his countenance once more assuming a steely resolve. "This is not a fit of petulance. Dear Brianna, lo, at last, I rise to defend mine own honor. After countless seasons of enduring indignities, what years dost thou speak of?" I didst scoff. "Is it not a touch theatrical? Perchance? Nay, 'tis not so." He spake softly. "Verily, the same course hath marked our entire bond. Hark, Liam doth summon. Thou dost take thy swift course upon the path. Liam doth require a certain something. It doth take precedence o'er our designs. His sentiments dost ever hold greater weight than mine own. Such injustice," I did protest, "good sir, whilst thou hast been away, Liam hath rendered me his assistance. I depart henceforth, for thou hast rendered it unfeasible for me to remain." Carter did declare, his voice strained with fervent emotion. "Canst thou fathom the anguish of witnessing thine own beloved consort bestow thy newly born offspring unto another man ere thou? To have that fleeting instant snatched away from thee?" For the first time, I sensed a dual whisper of uncertainty. Framed thus, it did indeed bear a wretched sound. Yet I remained too filled with ire and pride to concede such a truth. "Thou dost overstate thy case. It was not of such great import. It was for my own sake," Carter declared with a straightforwardness that pierced the air. "And the very truth that thou art still blind to this is precisely why I must take my leave." Prior to his departure, he instructed his legal counsel to reach out to me regarding a formal arrangement for the custody of our progeny. "Lawyer," I did exclaim once more, in utter astonishment, "art thou in earnest at this very moment?" "Verily," he did proclaim, "I seek to part ways in this union. 3 weeks hence the arrival of our child, I was met with the summons of dissolution." Carter did present his case upon the basis of insurmountable discord. Yet the intricate accusations did allude to an improper entanglement with another party. Mine ire knew no bounds. "How darest he suggest that I hath been unfaithful to him?" I did beseech her to act as my proxy. "These charges are most absurd," I did declare unto her. "Upon my honor, I have remained true to Carter, never straying from the path of fidelity." Zoe fell into a contemplative silence, her gaze lingering upon the pages she had perused. Emotional betrayal doth not always imply a carnal transgression. It doth signify placing another's heart above that of thy beloved partner. From thine own words, it doth appear that there may be merit in his assertions. What dost thou mean? Thou art meant to stand beside me. I stand with thee, especially in matters where one partner doth engage in a most intimate and boundary-crossing association with a former beloved. As though the tapestry of events were not already woven with complexity. Carter did beseech a test of paternity to be included in the unfolding proceedings. "How dost thou dare to utter such an affront?" I didst hiss in response to his words. "Thou art well aware that she doth belong to thee." "Am I so inclined?" Carter inquired, fixing his gaze upon me with earnest intent. "Forsooth, from my vantage point, it doth appear that thou and Liam have drawn nigh in a manner more intimate than thou hast confessed." As I beheld his retreating form, a profound solitude enveloped me, yet a flicker of trepidation lingered in the shadows of my heart. Upon a night, some 10 moons past, when Carter ventured forth on matters of trade, Liam and I did embark upon a revelry of spirits to mark his return to our fair town. We had both indulged in libations most plentiful, and the recollection of the eve's conclusion now dances in a haze of uncertainty. When I at last summoned the fortitude to inquire of Liam regarding the matter, his response did but heighten my trepidation. A test of parentage, he echoed, his visage turning strangely expressionless. There existed not a single cause that this trial might not reveal Carter as the progenitor. I inquired with a measured cadence. He did swallow, and it was plain to see. We merely exchanged a gentle kiss. Verily, that is all. Thou didst faint immediately thereafter. Did we exchange a kiss? Is that all there is? I did press him further. My skepticism not entirely laid to rest. Aye, that be the case, he did assert, yet a glimmer in his gaze did stir within me a doubt as to whether he spoke the entire verity. The decree of the court hath set the time for the paternity test to coincide with the hour of the infant's arrival into this world. I inquired of Carter and the infant. Verily, those 5 days stretched forth like an eternity, as I awaited the fateful results with bated breath. Upon the 5th morn, Carter did make a call. The results have been revealed. Pray, dost thou find time to rendezvous at the park adjacent to my brother's abode? Carter sat upon the bench, his gaze cast downward, lost in thought. I found myself seated beside him, the infant nestled in slumber within her cradle. Pray, do reveal it to me, I implored, for I could no longer endure the weight of uncertainty. From his jacket, he drew forth an envelope and proclaimed, "The purported sire, Carter Mitchell, is deemed excluded as the true progenitor of the child in question." The realm did sway askew. Nay, I did softly utter, "Surely there hath been some error." "There exists no error," quoth Carter, his tone void of warmth. I did bid them run it twice, perchance to glean a clearer truth. Good Sir Carter, I find myself in a state of bewilderment regarding how this most perplexing event could transpire. Never did I conceive such a thought. Hold thy peace, he declared, rising to his feet. The verity doth proclaim its own tale. He cast his gaze upon the slumbering infant, and I beheld the welling of tears within his eyes. Thus was I, he uttered with a gentle tone. Yet she is not of my own, and thou hast woven falsehoods throughout our union. I did not speak falsehoods, I maintained with fervor. Verily, I did believe. Halt, he did interrupt my discourse. Though certainty eluded thee, the spectre of possibility lingered in thy mind. My resolve hath reached its limit. Brianna, what dost thou propose shall occur henceforth? I did call upon him as he did turn to depart. Pray, summon Liam forth and impart unto him the joyous tidings of his newfound fatherhood. The dissolution of our union shall reach its conclusion. And I did summon Liam from my perch upon the park's bench. The tidings have returned. She doth not belong to Carter. A protracted stillness ensued. Art thou certain? Verily, this doth signify that she is thine. Liam, mine own voice hath faltered. Thou art her sire. In due course, he uttered, I require a moment to ponder this matter. May I return thy call anon? Yet he did not return the call, neither on that day nor the morrow that followed. Upon my arrival to his presence 3 days hence, his tone was remote and most decorous. It was not included in my own affairs as well. I did lose my temper. Yet she doth exist, and thou art bound to her care as well. I am aware, he exclaimed with haste. I beseech thee for a moment's respite to ponder and unravel the tangled threads of my thoughts. Expanse vast and infinite, such was the desire of them all. Carter sought distance from my presence. Liam yearned for a reprieve from the burdens that weighed upon him. And I found myself abandoned, burdened with an infant whose mere presence had rent my existence into fragments beyond recognition. Liam, after much deliberation, did consent to a test of lineage, which did indeed affirm his paternity, yet he remained reticent to embrace a more engaged presence in our daughter's existence. He extended his purse, yet hesitated at the thought of frequent encounters. I am not yet prepared to embrace the role of a father, he confessed amidst our growingly fraught exchanges. Nor did I with a voice raised in fervor. I cried out, having at last arrived at the precipice of my endurance. Thou didst yearn to partake so fervently when thou didst believe she belonged to Carter. Thou wert present, cradling her first, enacting the charade of domestic bliss within my union. And now, upon the revelation that she is truly thine, thou dost flee? That was most peculiar, Liam whispered. In that moment, I merely sought to offer my unwavering support. Nay, I did declare, as the verity at last did illuminate my mind, thou wert claiming thine own dominion. Less than text, thou didst find delight in the notion of entwining thyself in our affairs. Whilst casting shadows upon the sanctity of my union, thou didst merely shun the weight of true obligation. 2 moons hence the revelation of my lineage. The dissolution of my union with Carter was brought to its rightful conclusion. The final occasion upon which I beheld him was within the chambers of the attorney, where he did inscribe the last of the documents. Less than text, I wish thee joy, he uttered as we took our leave, and I could perceive the sincerity in his words. Alas, I uttered, my words but a pale shadow of the harm I had wrought. Lo, my daughter hath reached the tender age of 6 moons. In the stillness of the night, when the babe lies in slumber, I find myself perusing through cherished images of Carter, and I capturing moments of joy from days gone by. In contemplation, I find myself reflecting upon the myriad instances wherein I might have chosen a different path. The occasions I could have honored his sentiments regarding Liam, and the limits I ought to have established yet failed to do so. In the beginning, the infant appeared most charming, a tender interlude shared amongst companions. Alas, it was the last burden that shattered the bonds of my union ere we had departed the confines of the infirmary. And thus, I must endure the weight of that decision with each passing day. If there be but one lesson gleaned from this experience, 'tis that the bonds of affection are oft defined by limits for a purpose most wise. Not for the sake of envy or ownership, but rather for the sake of honor and esteem. Faith doth hold great import. To place thy beloved above all else is of utmost importance. Alas, I have come to grasp that lesson only when the sands of time have slipped through my fingers.